Okay, good morning, dear TÜSİAD members, the distinguished participants. Now we are together in the first training of 360-degree Green Deal training, the seminar series initiated by the TÜSİAD Green Deal Task Force. The Sustainable Product Initiative will help reducing the environmental degradation and the resource consumption, as you know, and these can reduce the EU's the foreign dependency. With this initiative, the EU will take the lead in determining the product standards, and as a result of this, the standards will be improved in countries that we have a trade relationship with the EU. In our training, we will focus on the technology dimension of the Sustainable Product Initiative and the application areas of the Digital Product Passport. The Satu Kaivonen, the head of the Circular Economy Task Force of the Business Europe, will take place as our instructor today. The Satu has conducted studies on climate risks and opportunities, environmental risks, and the science-based targets, sustainability reports, investor relations, ESG communication, and index reporting, corporate responsibility, crisis communication are among her areas of expertise. Satu, thank you very much for joining us today. We are very happy to have you as our first guest. I hope we further our collaboration after this webinar. Satu, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Fatih. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So I will be sharing some insights of the Digital Product Passport. Let me start by sharing my presentation. Could maybe someone confirm that they can see the slides?
Yes, we can see the slides.
Great. All right. Thank you so much. So, like I said, welcome. My name is Satu Kaivonen, and I am the chair of the Circular Economy Task Force at Business Europe, and we're very much working on the Digital Product Passport and the whole Sustainable Product Initiative. That's why I'm here, and also that I'm working at Konecranes as a sustainability manager. So working at the Finnish technology industry with this topic as well, and kind of representing the technology industry and trying to share some insights with you today. And just a very small disclaimer at the very beginning is that the Circular Economy Task Force in Business Europe is still working with the whole concept of SPI and ESPR and the Digital Product Passport. So we don't yet have very strong statements about how we want to actually make the points at this stage. We're still working on it, and I'm just sharing some insights from kind of myself and what we'll be discussing at the working group. But please, anyone online, just send some questions. But let me start. Just a few slides only on Konecranes, so you kind of understand a bit about my background. So where I'm coming from is an international technology company. So we manufacture cranes and hoists, and we do their services. We're active in 50 countries, and we have three business areas, like said. So we have the port solutions, industrial cranes and services, and then services by itself. Our sales is annually 3.2 billion. And we have about 17,000 employees around the world. And about what we actually manufacture are cranes and hoists at the industrial side, so on the ceiling of different customer sites. Then we can service these cranes, like in the picture in the middle. So these waste energy to waste cranes. And then on the left hand side, on the right hand side, we have the ports cranes that we also manufacture. So different kind of solutions for material handling and make it as sustainable as possible. So just as my background, where I'm coming from. Then going forward, taking a bit of a step back, so where we actually are starting our presentation today is the key trends of sustainability today. So there's a lot of pressure on companies being more transparent and having wider disclosures about their products. Currently, companies have been disclosing a lot about their business in their total. So what does a company do? But when we go to the product level, there is not that much information. And there's a rising pressure to ensure that there are different kind of metrics to measure the impact and not just the inputs. And as you all know, there's a race towards net zero. So how can we actually cut the emissions globally and transition to 1.5 Celsius and really towards net zero at 2050. And as the big companies are taking this path, they're taking the whole supply chain with them. So we really need to do this together to succeed. And we only have until 2030 to really make these big changes. We all see in the current situation, so there's a lot of resource scarcity. The global supply chains are in a turmoil at this stage. The prices are increasing. There's difficulty to get certain materials. And there really needs to also be a change in how we value raw materials. And this is where circular economy comes in. How do we extend the life cycles? And how do we make sure that we can actually use the secondary raw materials in the best possible way? And then, of course, biodiversity is a big topic nowadays. So how do the companies impact that? And how can we make sure that we keep the ecosystems up and running and understand the risks that we're doing with them, and how do we actually impact the biodiversity? We need to have information and disclose about that. And all of these 4 topics are things that the Digital Product Passport is answering. So how does this come more visible? And then the topic of today, so the Eco-Design for Sustainable Products Regulation, so ESPR. Previously it was called Sustainable Product Initiative, but this is now the set name for the new Eco-Design regulation. So the Eco-Design has been a directive before, and it's only been for products energy consumption, and now they have a more wider scope for the new sustainable criteria. And the aim is to make the products available on the EU market more durable and more sustainable. And how they're actually going to make this happen is with the Digital Product Passport. So that's the tool to really make this happen and spread the information wider. A few more words about this regulation. So EU really wants to improve the circularity, the energy performance, and other environmental sustainability aspects. And we're going to go a bit more deeper on that. So they will have kind of a minimum set of requirements for almost all categories of physical goods. So at least food sector is out of the scope, and there's some other exceptions as well. But almost all products on the EU market will be influenced by the Eco-Design regulation. And they want to bring kind of a common approach to products in the EU market to help create a level playing field. The requirements themselves will be tailored to the particular characteristics. If we talk about a paper product or a motorcycle or a washing machine, they all have different kind of characteristics. So they will be tailored to those product groups concerned. And the ESPR will also be complementing some of the existing product-specific rules. So we have legislation on batteries, chemicals, packaging. So they will kind of complement those for certain areas. And regarding chemicals, the ESPR can really complement the REACH regulation. And really the primary focus is ensuring chemical safety. The product groups that will be selected as the very first ones that are going to be concerned, and the setting of these product-specific rules will be subject to long-term planning. And they will also conduct an impact assessment and evaluate the administrative burden. So this will take time and resources because they want to, of course, avoid any market distortions and reducing some compliance costs and really analyze the competitive impact of this information gathering. So it really needs to make sense based on the costs and the administrative burden, and of course, towards circularity. There's been a discussion about the preliminary assessment made by the Commission, and they've identified some priority product categories that could be amongst the very first ones that will have this set of requirements. So there's been discussions about textiles, furniture, tires, aluminum, and steel, just to mention a few, but this hasn't been decided yet. So the discussions are ongoing on what product groups will actually be discussed first. And that would be a huge factor for the industry to know what are the product groups that will be discussed first, so they can really take that under consideration. And as the digital product passport will also be developed, in parallel. So this would be really interesting, but I'm sure that this priority group will be set at the end of this year. But this is just the discussions that are ongoing. And really, they have been communicating that any of the priority groups that will be set will be communicated well in advance, so the industry has time to prepare. The overall of the ESPR, so the product aspects. So we start with the eco-design requirements, and that's kind of the bigger picture that at least the Circular Economy Task Force is working on. And then it goes a bit deeper. So there are performance requirements for a product, and then there's information requirements for a product. And that's where the digital product passport comes into play. And on the right-hand side, there are items that could be in the information requirements and performance requirements. So durability, repairability, energy use, resource use, what is the amount of recycled content, what are the environmental impacts, so the environmental footprint. And like I said, this will be, again, like tailored to each of the product categories. There's also some discussion on the performance requirements. And like I said, this will, again, also be tailored to set this particular product. So is it a t-shirt or is it a motorcycle? So what kind of information do we need, and what is the level of performance that the Commission will be setting? And there will be a lot of discussions among the stakeholders. How do we actually get to a very good result at the end? And this is just an example about the digital product passport. Again, like how should we actually have the information in the digital product passport? And then again, discussing about the access rights. So if a company needs to share information, it's maybe not for all stakeholders to see. So maybe some part of it is just for the recycling company, and maybe some part is for the consumers and some part for the officials. But this is just an example. And then it's been also said that there should be a data carrier and a unique product identifier. So some kind of a code possibly that is attached to the product, so the consumer or the customer can actually read this information and make decisions based on that, and maybe add some more information on the digital product passport. This is just a draft from April. This was made by a Finnish working group about how would a textile sector digital product passport actually look like. And you can really see that there are different actors along the value chain. There's the raw material providers, material suppliers, then there's the producers, and even consumers at this stage. So should consumers actually contribute to the digital product passport? This was just a discussion, just wanted to share kind of the visuals at this stage, and this is work still ongoing. But how do we gather the information and how does it feed to the whole value chain to actually create an impact? And going a bit deeper again, like what is the information that should be included in this kind of a product passport? And this is just based on kind of base the conversation on some examples. So in the textile sector, on fibers, what is the kind of the level of granularity that we need this information from? So the energy consumption, water waste treatment, CO2 emissions. So what really is the data that drives circularity, makes sense for the next party in the value chain and drives circularity? So what really are the data points? And this is the discussion that all the stakeholders can actually contribute to. But just a visual from one of the workshops in Finland. But really, what do we want to accomplish with the digital product passport? Yes, it's the tool for the ESPR, but really it tries to enhance circularity in the whole EU market. It really strives to give relevant information regarding the sustainability metrics. So there's a lot of information out there, but what actually makes sense, what actually brings value. We really want to improve circularity and repairability and extend the product lifecycle on the market. So the passport itself is not extending the product lifecycle as such, it's just information, but it could help extend that lifecycle by sharing this data for like reusing the product or enabling some access to repair and access to some spare parts. So there's a big opportunity here to develop new kind of circular markets, create new actors in the value chain, and really also achieve a functioning market for secondary raw materials, because that's also a big target out there that we all should use even more and more recycled materials in our products. And this is a very big thing that we need to actually make happen to really contribute to the climate neutral future that we really need to make happen by 2030. The idea really is to support better decision making on every level. But again, like what are the data points that drive that decision making? And we need to make the climate and circularity impact visible. And that's the whole key, to really cut the emissions and make good use of our natural resources. We also definitely need to extend the knowledge on a design for circularity. So going all the way back to the product design. So there is where the big things need to happen. So how do we improve durability? How do we improve extending the life cycle and maybe creating other loops for reuse and so forth? So again, like help building the secondary material market. What data points are relevant and critical? I would say that the material breakdown, definitely. So providing more transparency on materials, even on kind of the very general level on kind of the 7 main materials of the product. So that could also help creating possibilities for reuse and also how to actually recycle this product in the best and the most efficient way. Repair information is really relevant as well. How can this product be repaired? What elements do we need to have so you can actually use this again? And where can you actually buy those spare parts? So this is a big thing that the EU is trying to also kind of grab with this legislation, is that you actually have to repair your product. There needs to be a process behind that. So you just can't put products on the market and then forget about them. Lifespan data, so how long has this product been used or this component be used, and what kind of substances are in the product, can again like help retain some critical raw materials in the EU market and even strategic components, because we can maybe reuse a lot of them. But like I said, these information requirements will again be adjusted separately to each product category. So what data can we actually share nowadays, at least from our side? These bigger listed companies have a requirement for many years to disclose data about their products and their businesses. So the environmental data, so energy data, the biggest impacts that this product or the businesses creates, that's already out there, and that's shareable. But it's also important to think about what are the low-hanging fruits at this stage, but what is also this type of information which is really hard to get, and it requires a lot of resources. So what, again, like makes sense for the product passport and for the next actor in the value chain. But again, like the data out there should be limited to circular purposes. So how does this data actually drive circularity? Really, that should be the thinking behind it. And then there's, of course, this is opinion more based on the discussions that I've had. So what are the data points that we're not really willing to share because there's different reasons behind that. So analyzing stakeholder needs, like I said, is the really key to identify what type of information should you actually have available to make informed choices. So really being very precise on who needs to know and what is the level of data that they actually need to know. So there's questions of IPR rights and circularity. So of course, the IPR rights and circularity is kind of maybe competing against each other a bit. So which one wins in certain things? So where do you actually have to be transparent to actually enhance circularity, and where does it actually could be very destructive for a business? But overall, all sensitive and business critical information must be avoided. This can't be a way that companies need to share absolutely everything. So there needs to be a very clear identification what is needed and what actually drives the circularity. There's also been discussions about having the data, the digital product passport at the company site. So who owns the data actually creates the product passport. But there's also been discussion that the EU would maybe launch this central system to kind of back up that information. And that's really something could be damaging. So when the data is no longer in the hands of where it should be on the data ownership, some confidential data might be maybe even leaked out. So we're kind of discussing, at least on the industry side, that we would not wish to have the central system in place. Also, we would not like to disclose names of value chain partners, customers, and so forth. Again, business critical information. And then there's the access rights. So what information do you want to share, and to whom? Who does it make sense to share it with? And really detailed information about substances, because that information is already available in other kind of places. So there shouldn't be a lot of overlap between regulations and the disclosed information. But moving on with the product passport, there are 3 milestones ahead. So like I said, the Circular Economy Task Force, Business Europe, and also a number of different organizations working with this. And we're looking at the proposal and trying to comment on that. Description of scope and identification of some key features. So that's what we're working on to actually land on a very good proposal at the end. There needs to be some technical requirements, of course. We need to take advantage of the information available, so the standardization processes. And there's also need to be, like I said, there will be a number of delegated acts that will identify the specific information in these digital product passports for each product group. And after there's a delegated act, the DPP is mandatory for those products. So kind of coming back to, again, like the pros and challenges that there are. So this is definitely a really good thing that we are actually having this legislation. So there is there's this criteria that's been expanded from the previous eco-design directive for a wider scope. So having really criteria for product sustainability and having the possibility for all the stakeholders to kind of give their say and influence how this actually looks like to really drive circularity and sustainability. And this is now a regulation instead of a directive, which makes it faster to actually to apply it in each member state at the same time. Product level performance and information requirements. So it's really good that it's on a product level, not an article level, like in REACH regulation. That would be quite difficult. Bringing really a common approach, creating a level playing field, really important. Sharing this information is key. So if we don't share information, how do we actually take all the advantages of circular economy and the businesses and business opportunities that there are? There's also been written down in the regulation that there will be member state support for the SMEs, trainings and so forth. So they will also be included heavily on building the knowledge at that stage as well, where the resources are really scarce. Like I said, they are setting up this eco-design forum where all stakeholders can influence, which is an excellent thing. All the transparency here really brings a lot of value, and this really fights the greenwashing that's been criticized by the companies, that they're sharing false claims and the numbers can't be compared to each other and so forth. So this is also one step to fight that. And responding to consumer demand. Consumers want to know more. We should provide them more value to make good decisions. And this improves risk management. When you actually have to get the value chain data, you also do risk management, and you can also drive requirements down your supply chain and understand better what is the impact you want to create. And creating commercial partnerships, of course, you can find really new business opportunities and new partners in this. And then there's kind of these challenges that we also see, of course. At this stage, we're still having the conversation, so I'm really hoping that we can get around these. It looks that the Commission will be given a lot of power over product design and lifespan impacts if you really kind of read through the proposal at this stage, especially on the delegated acts. So that's a concern that we have. We can really see that there's a lot of administrative burden because they are talking about having dynamic passports, which means that the passport needs to be real time, which will be difficult if you have a product that will need repair and you will lose visibility at some point. So that's a big issue as well. Then, of course, the data gathering, like I said, the global nature of supply chains will make it difficult because we all have supply chains in Europe and outside of Europe as well. So how do we actually manage that for each product that we put on the market? And like hoping that we can use current standardizations and definitions as much as possible. There's also been discussion about the social data, and that would be quite difficult to get that information per product level. The big concern that we have is the substance of concern. So there are and will be overlaps with REACH and ROS and ESPR. And that will add an additional level to data reporting. So there's in the proposal, they say that there needs to be tracking of all substances of concern, which is a wider concept than REACH, throughout the product life cycles. And there's also plans to ban or restrict a wider range of substances. And it's a concern that the industry has, that these groups that will decide on this, will they have enough information? So some of the trade-offs could even lead to a shorter lifespan when you don't understand maybe the technology behind it and the material choices. Where the trade-offs will be discussed is our question again. So how does this get discussed? Data sharing, of course, the access rights, the confidentiality, and does the company hold the rights to its own data? And that should be the case. Information requirements and their validity and transparency. So there's discussing that you also would need to verify your data. So you need to have a third party to verify some part of that data for all the products put on the market. Again, a huge burden if this needs to be a dynamic passport. And there's also a really strong role for market surveillance. So having the officials a part of this process as well. Resources, of course, a big concern for the big companies as well as the small ones, and the member states training. So will there be enough resources for us to actually do the market surveillance, do the trainings for the SMEs, support them in the best way possible? And will all of the investments be on those companies that need to actually produce the product passports? Because it's the actors that place the products on the market that needs to have the product passport available. And then again, like going into the nitty-gritty, so the details and the definitions, what is a manufacturer, what does it mean to be destroying goods? So that's what we're working on with the Circular Economy Task Force. And again, like to take this really, really good proposal and trying to be true to the ambition level, but still make it practical, that it actually works and serves the purpose of circularity. But then coming at the end of the presentation, so why are we actually doing this? So this also always needs to be taken into account. This is an example of the Nordic Circular Economy Playbook, which is available online. So this is really what's really happening nowadays. So there are unsustainable materials. We can't maybe recycle them. We use them lavishly. They're underutilized capacity. So how can we make most of the manufacturing plants that we have? And there's premature product lives. So there's this premature aging that's taking place. So how do we avoid that and really extend the lifespans of the products? And then there's wasted value at the end of life. So how do we build the infrastructure to support us? How do we build a secondary raw materials market that actually serves the purpose of the businesses and of course the customers? So you can see that there's so much lost opportunities for customer engagements currently. So we really need this legislation, and we also need voluntary activities to really grasp all the opportunities. So this is what circularity is trying to address. So this is definitely the right way forward. Really ending on with the next steps, and this is an analysis done by our company, Konecranes. So the timing is such that the proposal was released at the end of March. And this will be set into force gradually according to the Eco Design and Energy Labeling Working Plan for 2022 to 2024. So this will take some time. And the first set of categories of products will be defined at the end of this year. And again, this all needs Commission's approval. The technical characteristics of the passport and the identification per product family will take place after the adoption. Once the framework is in place, the product requirements will be rolled out following these multi-annual working plans. So when we've actually thought about the impact to our business, so there's no immediate impacts for Konecranes products, but the ESPR does require each of our products to have a separate, possibly a dynamic database where the required information must be shared. And for our products, the possible data requirements could be related to durability, reusability, repairability, maintenance activities, some substances of concern, energy and resource efficiency, and so forth. And the technical data about recyclability and circularity could be required as well. But again, we think about the access rights of our stakeholders. So the data needs to be accessible on our own platform, but how do we actually do that? So it really does require us to gather data from the supply chain. And we're definitely looking on the batteries because that could also be one of the first priority products that will move towards a product passport. But again, this has to be approved with the category of products framework. But really, the next steps forward is that we will have the product categories at the end of this year, and we will know more. Are these textiles or construction products? What will be on the first wave, so to say? Will it be B2C or B2B products? And the prototypes of the digital product passports, like I shared some visuals, they're currently being drafted. So what would actually look like? How does the infrastructure, how will that be actually built? And the Commission will launch a public consultation on the categories of products to be selected under the eco-design, the SPR working plan by the end of this year. And the Business Europe Working Circularity Task Force will be working on the whole paper and the proposal and give their amendment proposals quite soon. And also the other organizations are working with this. And like said, the idea is to keep the industries well informed, so they will definitely communicate as soon as they've actually reached the decision on the priority product categories. But that was all from me. Thank you so much.
Satu, thank you very much for your excellent the presentation and all information. Dilek Hanım.
Satu, thank you so much for all those information. There are lots of details to be followed and to be get used to, at least visualize by the companies, what are the next steps to get used to those changes. We have, as you have mentioned, race to net zero. We have a short time until 2030, but all those legislations are coming one after the other. So we don't have like 8 years ahead of us to comply with all those rules. And as you have also mentioned, Commission is getting stronger and stronger. Lots of responsibilities, lots of have a strong say in many different aspects of product design, lifespan, and there are also some transparency issues attached due to those duties of or responsibility, or have a say at the European Commission side, and we have lots of changes ahead of us.
Yeah.
There are many concerns from the company perspective, and as you have also mentioned, from the consumers' perspective. And I think you have mentioned a little bit that consumers, there is a discussion ongoing regarding consumers' involvement with the DP development. Does this concern their contribution from their perspective or experience of use of the products, their experience of sustainability, repairability, etc., and or other aspects? What do you think? What are the most important issues regarding consumers' participation to the process?
Yeah, so there's been discussion on how do we actually produce valuable information for decision making. What is the information that actually makes sense to a customer? If you buy a refrigerator, you might want to buy the one that is the most energy efficient, but are there other data points that would interest you when you buy that refrigerator? And then the other thing is that industries are very keen to have consumers participate in the product passport. But when you actually really think about it, so the consumers have so many products. They use a bicycle, they use a radio and a mobile phone, and they wear clothes. So they can't, report on every possible digital product passport about how they use their clothes or how they ride their bike. So what is the level that we can expect to actually engage with the consumers, but moreover, like provide information for decision making?
I think there are some questions coming from the audience.
Sure.
I'm trying to have a look at those questions. Will there be a digital passport for the first stage? Ms. Zeynep Orak is asking, will there be a digital passport for the first stage regarding the path towards ESPR and the relevant regulations?
So the digital product passports will be set per product category, and they have not selected the very first product categories yet, but they're discussing about textiles and batteries and construction products and so forth. So the industry will know what are the priority product groups concerned, and then they will actually start working with digital product passports. And when there is a delegated act and a product category requirements, then the digital product passport is mandatory.
And another question is, could you explain how the information to be inserted or embedded in digital product passports would be determined, collected, and verified for each sector? You have also mentioned that there's a discussion regarding creating a central mechanism to produce or verify the data set in the digital product passports. How this could happen?
Yeah, that's been really, like I said, that this was a proposal that was released really just the end of March. So we're still really looking into the proposal and trying to figure out how would this actually work in practice. And the willingness is to have a digital product passport, even though the data points and the requirements will vary depending on the product category, but it should be kind of the same for all. So how do we make that happen, and how to gather the data? So what is the technology used, and will that be like a PDF file or an Excel file or a digital platform where the information is inserted? And how do the participants in the supply chain and value chain insert that information? So that's all still in the debate, but an excellent question, and something that that is currently worked on.
I am seeing in the Q&A box that there is a question, and Fatih Özkadı would like to answer this question live. It has been chosen, or is it mistyped as you would like to answer? Fatih Bey? I think it's mistakenly typed.
Let me read the question from Berker Karagöz. Am I right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that one I'm seeing right now, and it was typed as Fatih Özkadı would like to answer this question live.
Okay, one second.
It's a technical. Mistakenly typed.
Yeah. I mean, at the moment, I don't want to give the detail. Maybe we should study carefully on this question, and we did take our notes, and we would like to give the answer later.
Sure.
So we can I think we have still time. So for one or two questions regarding the data sets, the enormous amount of data sets would be produced and would be circulating in the marketplace and all through the value chain. Is there any feasibility study conducted for the digital footprint caused by the exponentially growing data storage? Do you have any idea regarding this?
So I don't have an answer. Is there a study being conducted? But I think there should be, because that question is so on point. So if we have like a double system, so the data is stored in two places in the companies, and then maybe possibly in the central system. So the environmental footprint will be very, very big, and that will also consume a lot of energy. So I think that should also be very much thought through, because they shouldn't create negative environmental impacts collecting this data. So what is kind of the level that produces the best value for the environment and doesn't consume excess amounts of energy?
There is another very relevant question coming from Kaan Kurtkaya Arçelik from Arçelik. What are the reactions of member states on the delegated act path? Maybe I can also include what are the reactions of member states plus companies, which actually limits their involvement in the regulatory processes, because it gives too much strong say to the European Commission.
True. We haven't actually went this far yet in the Circular Economy Task Force, but I would definitely also say that this is what we've been discussing. So it feels that they're giving so much power. So where do we influence, and at what stage? Because of this very reason.
And questions from the finance banking sector. So do you have any suggestions for banks to how to support digital passport process for the real sector? How can they provide information to their customer base, like maybe SMEs? Do you have any recommendation for the banking sector?
So the ESPR and the digital product passports are only for physical products placed on the market. So banking sector with that definition is not included as such as the product passport, but they could of course be a very important stakeholder that would actually wish to have this information, because we need the financial and the banks and that's whole sector to drive this and drive better decision making. So I'm sure that these are kind of in the consumer's clients stage, so they would maybe be willing to access these digital product passports. So I think that's a very valuable question in how to engage those sectors in this as well, if they're not like physically buying these products, but they're actually financing them.
And maybe I can also contribute from my perspective. I mean, for example, in Turkey, banks are organizing some training sessions, like raising awareness of the some manufacturing companies, especially SMEs, to raise their awareness about the upcoming legislations in order to better comply with the requirements. Maybe this could be also in addition to what you have also suggested. There is another.
Yeah, excuse me. By the way, maybe I want to make a comment. If the participants can write their questions in English, I believe that it will be the easier to handle it at the moment. Berker Bey, Yasemin, Kayhan Hanım, most probably Satu will be happy to answer these questions. Thank you.
If we have time, we have time. I have another question at hand. What is the path that is planned to follow in order to evaluate the convenience of products in the framework of ESPR and DPP, such as self-declaration, etc.? Is it foreseen to establish a new mechanism other than current market surveillance mechanisms, considering the variety of products to evaluate the convenience of products in the framework of their usability, I think. Self-declaration, yeah.
Could you maybe really rephrase that in a bit? So what is the question there? So a new mechanism for...
To verify and evaluate the usability. I mean, I think...
Yeah, okay, I think I understood, yeah. So there's these self-declarations based on certain standards, and you can have a third party verify about that, but that's a self-declaration. And the EU Commission is also working on a green claims legislation. So there will also be standards on how you can actually claim your products to do this and that. And this is definitely one tool for that. So how do you make those claims, and where you can actually base them, and how do you need to verify that? So I would say that this is a new mechanism that the EU wants to reinforce by also having a regulation for it.
Yasemin Kayhan has translated her question into English so that I read. For digital product data, will there be a validation and accreditation process of the data so that the data can be evaluated in a common language, such as ISO standards and verification bodies requirement for sample product carbon footprint?
Yeah, that is exactly the question. So we need to gather the data, but how do we verify it at every single stage of one single product that enters the market? So how do we do that? That's an impossible administrative burden, but there are some data points, I'm sure, if we think about a static information, that would provide value to have a verification on that and a third-party stamp. And definitely the industry feels that we should use all the standards that are currently available and commonly agreed, and that is an excellent way forward. We don't need to maybe have verification on every single data point if we can really base it on standards and common methodologies, how you can calculate that data and then share it. So there needs to be, again, like discussion on the costs and the administrative burden, how to provide this data and how it drives circularity and what needs to be verified. So again, kind of like there's this market surveillance perspective, and then there's the cost and administrative burden, and does it actually add that much value to the circularity element? But yeah, definitely a good question again.
And the subject is so huge. It's large, covering lots of data, lots of product groups, and there will be some also upcoming new legislations with delegated acts, etc. There is a huge, there's a long road ahead.
Yes.
And we will see. I think there are many challenges, and one after the other, we will better see as we move towards in the timeline. I mean, but of course, there will be. Do you think that there will be delegated acts moving at the same pace, not one by one? I mean, because once the delegated act is approved by the Commission, there will be a certain period of time to be approved by the European Parliament. And there are some also different way forward to get it approved. Maybe at some point they will be different delegated acts will be coinciding one with the other. And there might be some confusion from the company's efforts in complying with these requirements. Do you think that it will be a challenge? There will be a challenge regarding this process?
I'm pretty sure that if we get like a good proposal, and we can actually launch an effective way of engaging with all of the stakeholders in the eco-design forum, and we can get the agreement level fast for the product category, I don't see why the delegated acts couldn't like coincide with each other. But I just still think that if we have a lot of stakeholders commenting on the requirements, I don't see it as a fast process. And like I said, all of the industries need time. They need years of time to really start gathering. They can, of course, start gathering their information like today from their value chain, but to really understand what are the requirements and how to build this product passport. What does it actually require for kind of the digital and IT side? How do they build the access rights? What is the level of verification? And is this administrative and cost burden single to those companies that actually place the digital product passport on the market? So all of these questions need to be answered, and the industry needs really a lot of time to prepare. So really hope that they take enough time for having a good, thorough conversation, that we're all happy and pleased with the requirements, so it actually really drives sustainability and circularity. No point of rushing.
But I think, so here comes the question about third countries situation in all of these. Of course, in order to be in the EU market, in order to exist in the market, you have to comply with all those rules. What could be the potential challenges for the third countries in terms of the implementation of the DPP requirements? How could these countries overcome those challenges and sometimes impediments? Do you think that business organizations such as the Business Europe and TÜSİAD have a role to play throughout this process?
Yeah, there is definitely challenges ahead, and we really need to take it seriously and bring those actors along with us, because we share the value chains, and the idea is not to drive those suppliers away from the market that are not that able to comply with all of the needed data points. So I'm sure that there needs to be some kind of a process to commonly think about how we gather that data. And like a factory for a textile sector, I'm sure that they have a massive amount of customers. So how do they actually produce these digital product passport information to all of these customers and still like run their business in an efficient way? So I definitely see that the Business Europe and TÜSİAD could help in that way, to really find out what are the challenges and what can we do, because the education and the training is really a really big part of this. This doesn't happen by itself, so we really need to raise the awareness and the knowledge in every part of the value chain. But really to really understand the challenges would be the very first step.
I think we have arrived at the end of our session. Fatih Bey, would you like to have last words or comments before we close the session?
Dilek Hanım, thank you. Satu, thank you very much. As first guest we collected a number of important answers, and it was really a fruitful discussion. It was an excellent panel. As TÜSİAD, we want to keep in touch with you. Thank you for your contribution.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure to be here.
So thank you very much for your great contribution today, for explaining all of these and what kind of challenges are ahead of us. We hope to host you at another session, future seminar, maybe this time in person, maybe in Istanbul. So I would like to also thank to our audience for their kind participation, and I wish you all a very nice and fruitful rest of the day. Thank you.
Same here. Thank you. Thank you all.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.